Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome, and if you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we'd love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. Here it is, folks, our two-part holiday celebration extravaganza. I know you've seen the thumbnails, we're trying something new. We tried the white background stuff. That's not working. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do weird PNG clip art Christmas. And I thought no better way to celebrate that than doing 13 days of 13 top 5 episodes of each season of both Bob's Burgers and King of the Hill. So here you are. Merry Bobmas. Season 1 is great. It's also super short. Not as short as next season, but yeah, it's basically, of the 12 episodes, here's 5. So, without further ado, what worked, what failed, what, I don't know, Butter Julia Childs will be curtailed. It's much ado, here in my top 5 Bob's Burgers, something rhymes with review! Number 5, Human Flesh / Pilot. What do you want me to do here? Do you want me to gush about one of my favorite episodes of anything ever? Yeah, you know, like how King of the Hill's pilot is just a perfect pilot for really anything, Bob's Burgers pilot is the perfect pitch for what this show is when it is at its absolute best. I will watch Human Flesh constantly. And I don't even watch the American Dad pilot all that much. It's fine. It's not my favorite episode. It's one of the best of the early, of the first season, don't get me wrong. But the Bob's Burgers one is just so realized. You know exactly who all the characters are, and when Tina doesn't know how many toothpicks are on the ground, it's like, again, I went back and I revisited this episode for this video, and it was a very weird feeling because I keep trying to imagine what season 13 would have looked like if it was more like this and less like Amelia, you know? Not that Amelia's a bad episode at all, it's just, it's a completely different tone than these early Bob's Burgers episodes. And there's so much genuine heart in the comedy here. It's just so matter of fact, it's so reliant on the conversational chemistry between, John Benjamin, Kristen Schaal, Dan Mintz, John Roberts, all of them. This was a perfect example that you had a team that was creating something genuinely greater than the sum of its parts. This was a perfect formula for a show to shine, and I loved it. This pilot is still one of my favorite episodes of Bob's Burgers, bar none. Animation's whatever. Honestly, I like the weirdness of the earlier animation. It's just definitely much more monstrous, and I like that. I know they had to dial it down for, family friendly and whatever, but it makes me pine for what could have been. Number 4, Lobster Fest. And now here's the life-size sculpture of Julia Child made entirely of butter. The weird charm of the city was on full display in Lobster Fest, and I loved it. I loved that Jean, Tina, and Louise were having this very come-to-God moment about eating lobster and how they want it to be special, and Jean is very, very, very allergic. But it's also just great to see Bob, he's helping Hugo as a wingman. He's, trying to give everybody shelter, take care of them, because that's who Bob is. Throughout the series, we see that Bob is a very likable guy, and I loved Bob in this episode. I love that Bob is the focus of a lot of the early episodes of Bob's Burgers, like you would think he would be. But Lobster Fest is a perfect celebration of him going mad with, power, and him just being a good, likable guy. Nobody helped him clean up the restaurant. Of course he's gonna freak out on him. They destroyed his place. And just, the weird brotherhood between him and Hugo is so magical. And I'm here for it. Obviously, that's because John Benjamin and Sam Cedar are friends and they play well off of each other. But it's also just, it's fun. It's so fun. I love Lobsterfest. And again, after finishing my 14 season long review of Bob's Burgers, going back to season 1 and seeing this episode again, I'll admit it, I cried tears of joy. The fact that the first season holds up still to this day as one of just the best first seasons of any animated series is incredible. I could never slander this season, and if I did, assume I'm a pod person, because it is just so genuine. They are telling jokes without any fear, and I appreciate that. They are, they're experimenting. They're going weirder, darker. Family Guy will go to some weird and dark places for a joke, but Bob's Burgers is willing to say, yeah, let's get in the mud. Let's say some jokes that might get you by surprise. And I love that. I love that renegade energy that Bob's Burgers had in the early seasons. Number 3, Torpedo. It's weird to have heroes that are the same age as you. Torpedo, where Pilot is one of the best pilots, I think Torpedo is one of the best season finales. Now, it's not my favorite episode of the entire season. Obviously, that's why I said number 3 in front of its name. But it's still incredibly good. Ben Garant is fantastic. I adore anything that Tim and Eric are in because I'm a filthy scrub that enjoys meta comedy, watch on cinema at the cinema. But Torpedo is so dark, so weird, and so fun because of it. Like, Mr. Fish Odor is actively taking advantage of people. He's putting them in dangerous stands. He should be, this vilified antagonist, except he's just going, just kick the screws under there, Bob. Don't worry about it. Just kick the screws. My Wonder Dog's out. It's those small quips by Kevin Kline that make Mr. Fish Odor like, I don't want him to get arrested because then I get less Mr. Fish Odor. And that is a punishment for me, not for him. It's just... He's using Bob's Burgers, just slathering his balls in grease. Which is it? Is Bob's Burgers a slop shop, or is it a super high-end burger joint where Bob's making all these experimental burgers? You can have it one way or the other. And I'll admit this, big Pokemon player here, ever since I saw this episode, if I ever ran a rain team in Pokemon, I would name my Pelipper Captain Pel-I-Can, because it will never be out of my head. I adore Captain Pel-I-Can. I will always use it in any way I can. It's amazing, and anything that can get that ingrained into my head is worth celebrating. Number 2, Art Crawl. Megan Mullally as Gale is great. She's fantastic, of course she is. I love that this is just the episode where she puts a bunch of buttholes on everything. That's it. Linda throws them in the closet because she's tired of looking at the butts. You know what? Fair. Absolutely justified, absolutely understandable, and I love that this is a Bob's Burgers episode. Louise effectively using child labor? Yes, please! Give me more weird and twisted stuff. And I know I didn't talk about Kristen Schall's performance with Louise really at all in the review. Honestly, I think she did a really great Louise in the first 3 or 4 seasons. Now they've made her very soft-spoken. And I know that's not Kristen Schaal. I know that's how they're trying to sort of make Louise a softer character and a more endearing character, but it sort of takes away from it. She's great. I love her in anything. She was great in Gravity Falls. You heard me gush about her in Bless the Hearts. She is a very integral part of the family. But episodes like this is when Louise is shining and she's like, I'm coming back in 30 minutes. I better see some art. It's perfect. That is what I want out of Louise. And also, you had the Silverman sisters and they're great. It's just, this episode is just a celebration of your regular cast that's going to be in the show doing weird and wacky stuff. Of course, see the dancing butts. It's just, you know what? I'm about it. Number 1, Sheesh Kebab. There's a lot of places where I could get demonetized talking about this episode real quick, but I love this episode. From the first appearance of Marshmallow, who is called Marshmallow because if she sees a sweet potato pie, she is over it. Love it. Love that that is our introduction to Marshmallow. I love that we get to see Bob exploring the nightlife, and it's so, like, the episode itself came out in the mid-2000s, and yet it feels very much like a taxi cab confessional where he's driving through the city at night, or whatever that song is. I don't know. I loved it. I love that song. I love when they're dancing and Jimmy Choo's just like, snap, snap. That's great and awkward and weird. You know, Bob just passing out and sleeping and drooling on everyone. And that's the beauty of Bob's Burgers, is how ugly in a good way it is. How honest and how weird it is. Bob is willing to do anything for Tina, even drive a night taxi. And that's great. You also get Mr. Fish Odor in his fog cape, which I adore. I adore his little fog cape just billowing in the fog. It's great. It's fantastic. That episode is so fun, even though it has him seeing the, dark, seedy underbelly of the town. And it's, Oscar from The Office and Joel McBriar just, giving him some ammo against Jimmy Pesto. And that's fun. You also get to see Bob shaved, which I think is the only time you see him without his mustache in the entire show. And the fact that they're willing to spend that in the first season, bold. Absolutely bold. I loved it. I loved how they were willing to take risks in the first season. And I think Sheesh Cab Bob, in comparison to like how Family Guy or how The Simpsons would use this episode idea, Bob's Burgers did it in probably the most wholesome way. Family Guy, he'd be getting run down by some character, some mafioso or movie reference actor that got in for this one role or something. Simpsons would have him going up against Fat Tony or something. No, it's none of that. It's just Bob driving people around, just trying to make an extra buck like anybody else. And people respect that. And that's just something wholesome. I don't know. I keep coming back to Sheesh Cab Bob, and it's just one of the best episodes of the show. I will defend it till the end. And there we have it. That was my top 5 episodes of season 1 of Bob's Burgers. Anything you think I was right on, wrong on? What are your top 5 episodes of the season? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you saw, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Yeah, no, season 1 is it's great. I love every bit of it. It shows that they never lost what made home movies and Dr. Katz so special. And it's for me. I know there's a really deep emotional core to the newer seasons and how they're being more and more, deep and interpersonal. But I also just like, maybe their meat is human flesh. Maybe Bob becomes a cabbie so that Tina can have her special dance. It's so dumb in the best possible ways that it makes you feel warm inside. It makes you feel like a proper holiday celebration, Anyway, that's going to do it for us here at the Lecture Hall. If you like what you saw, consider supporting the channel. $2 a month and you get special polls, posts, and even your name on this fancy list. Ooh! Like always, thank you all so much for watching. Stay strong, keep fighting, and we will be back with another episode because the holidays never stop, never stopping. Goodbye, everybody, and I'll see you all next time.